Good day. The case study that will focus on is about the tipping issue carried out at the restaurant. This report will further critically analyze the issue between the restaurant, customer, manager, and staff. The study will contain aims, objectives, suggestions, and recommendations to establish a solutions to the current problem. The gratuity, also called a tip, is a sum of money given by the customers to a staff or server depends on the performance of the assigned server. The tip can either small or high amount of money as long as it's voluntarily given, and also it can be a way of thanking the server for an exceptional performance. According to Will in 2015, despite tipping, it's not cost-effective and it doesn't increase service quality. While according to Azar and Yossi 2008, tipping on the other hand is a large part of restaurant employees' pay, accounting for more than half of their earnings. However, there's an issue regarding in giving a tips. A lot of servers expect the customer to give them a tip after a good performance, but not all the customers are aware and cannot afford to give a tip. In results of the expectations of the server, their performances and etiquette of being a server are affected. It raises ethical problems and perpetuates discrimination. This scenario is experienced in certain restaurants. This case study aimed to explore the possible strategic interventions and solutions in the tipping issue experienced by the manager, staff, and customers. It also targeted to help the server to not expect and rely on the tip given by the customers, which may lead to being disrespectful and unprofessional. Moreover, this study will serve as a pilot study that will help the employers, staff, and customers in designing different suggestions and solutions in the tipping issue. Furthermore, these studies seek to realize the significance of knowing the limitations of tipping in a restaurant. The researchers are looking forward that if this tipping issue will be solved, then there will be fair between the customer and the server. The customer will no longer pressure himself to give tips, and as well as the server will not expect too much but to work in accordance to its position. Finally, this study will help the employers, staff, management, and customers realize the value of knowing the tipping issue through understanding the limitations of tipping. For further evidences, we have provided review literatures. According to Lin and Thomas Hisber 2003, tipping is not limited to supplementing the server's income, while according to McKenzie 2016, this forces servers to work hard in order to receive tips from clients. Also, tipping practices may create a highly competitive working environment among customers, resulting in an increased stress and jealousy. Tipping does not improve customer service. Their work should be based in accordance to their positions, not on the tips of the customer. The study investigates the link between restaurant tipping proclivity and customers' vulnerability to emotional contagion or EC, in order to shed more light on customers' proclivity to pay more for a service than they are legally compelled to, or that is to pay more than the price of tipping. Customer sensitivity to EC or social compliance in server actions have the greatest impact on tipping intentions at Turkish restaurants according to the findings. These data support the idea that regardless of culture, universal human qualities, such as the tendency to reciprocate according to Hartfield 1993, influence consumers' tipping behavior according to Koku 2016.
Control position employers. Management is responsible for overseeing the quality of service supplied by its employees, as well as the motivational reason that differ from restaurant to restaurant and period to period. It is the manager's obligation to maintain good service standards and achieve company objectives. The tipping practice was also appreciated by the industry because it reduced labor costs and other incentives while enhancing service quality by integrating the cost of doing so into the price charged to clients. Therefore, in the tipping issue, manager are lack of educating the servant to not rely on the tips. Tipping at the restaurant will affect the behavior of the server whether it's in a good or bad way. If the customer give the server a tips, then the server will continue to do their best. However, if the customer did not give tips to server, will affect the behavior towards the consumer. According to Rasper and Rossman 2016, tipping is underutilized in a motivational technique. Rasper and colleagues 2014 discover a link between increasing the value of tips and higher service quality, increased financial and numerical flexibility, motivation, happiness with tips received, and the strategy utilized to increase the value of tips in previous studies. In the restaurant, giving tips is not only crucial acceptable but also expected by the servers. However, if the restaurant doesn't have any tipping policies, it will affect the behavior of their employees and how they treat and serve the customers. The researcher proposed solution is for the manager to educate and remind staff about their behavior toward tipping. The tipping should have limitation for the customer not to be uncomfortable and forced because server expected to have the tips. Barkan in Israel 2004 based on 15 restaurants in Israel. Researchers look at how servers' roles as both expert and managers influence tipping behavior to discover a stronger link between tip and bill size, as well as the favorable link between tip and group size. Therefore, the manager will have a great impact to the behavior of the server through educating the server about the policies in the restaurant, especially the policies in the tipping to avoid tipping issue within the restaurant between the customer and the server. In addition, according to Mayor 2015, the restaurateur and entrepreneur has made headlines once again by announcing that he will no longer accept tips at his eateries. Mayor isn't the first to make such a bold move. Several restaurants in New York and across the country have eliminated tipping, claiming that it is an antiquated practice and causes unfavorable working conditions for restaurant employees. This explains that tipping is not always good in the restaurant, so limitation of tippings will be helpful.
Conclusion and recommendation. Conclusion. The researcher discovered the reason behind the tipping issue is the server relies on the tips behavior of the server toward customer. The proposed solution are educating and reminding the staff about the tipping policy and the limitation in the tipping for both the server and the customers. Recommendation. Based on the finding and conclusions of the study, the researcher recommendation are for the manager or employee to continue reminding the staff and the future staff about the tips and its possible outcome. Secondly, the staff should be always remind themselves do not rely to the tips coming from the customer and do not forget how to be professionals. And for the customer to be mindful about giving tips. Lastly, for the future researcher are encouraged to conduct furthermore study regarding on how to prevent tipping issue. Implementation. The goal is to prevent the tipping issue experiencing at some restaurant, wherein the manager, staff, and customers are affected. Organization of the restaurant should make rules regarding the tips policies. Including the tips policy in the rules will definitely help the staff to be more mindful on the behavior. Also, the manager should educate the staff before they hire it to stay professional as long as the customer did not do anything that violates the rules.